Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to use conditional statements to affect your game logic in Crayta. So we're going to look at what conditional statements are. A couple of prerequisites before you start this tutorial. You're going to need to be able to use advanced mode in Crayta because we're going to be doing some scripting. So that means you're going to need a keyboard and mouse in order to follow along. And also, I would recommend that this isn't the first scripting tutorial you do, and have a look at the ones around variables before you embark on this one. Now, to give you an idea of what a conditional statement is I'm going to start with an example. So at the moment we have this door and it's open, and if I press this switch, it closes, which is fine. Now, if I wanted to open it, if a player wanted to open it, they would probably go, maybe I need to use this lever again. So they would press the lever again, but lo and behold, that only closes. So how might I make it so that this lever opens the door if it's closed or closes the door if it's open? So I want this lever to act more like a toggle than like a always open and always close kind of switch. So like now, if the doors are closed, I would like this to open the doors. And the key word in that sentence was if. If the doors are closed, then open the doors. If the doors are open, then close the doors. And those if and then, they're the keywords that we're actually going to be using in Lua to script this. Let's dive into some of the code here. So at the moment, if I go into advanced mode and I click on these doors, they actually have a door script attached, which is this one here. And here we can see that we've got this open method and this close method. And the open method just plays a sound and an opening animation. And the close method plays a different sound and a closing animation. And at the moment, the lever is hooked up to, if I click on the lever, we can see that the onInteract method is hooked up to the portcullis drawbridge doors close event. So what we want to do is, like I said before, we're going to turn this into more of a toggle. So if the doors are open, then close them. If the doors are closed, then open them. So let's do that. Instead of using this close method, let's use the toggle method, which I've written out here already. And let's explore how we can open these doors if they're closed. So at the moment, the doors start open. So we would expect the open doors to just close, okay? Now, in order to track that they're open, we should really set up a variable here that holds a Boolean value of true or false, whether the doors are open or not. So if the doors are open, then this Boolean variable here will hold true. If the doors are closed, then the Boolean variable will hold the value false. And I'm just going to write that out. I'm going to hard code that to start with, which basically means that I'm not going to check what the doors actually are. I'm just going to assume that they start open. And I could create a property and link that to the doors in some way. But that's not what this tutorial is about. We're focusing on conditional statements here. So the starting point was this Boolean value here. And I'm saying that the doors are open at the start of the game in the init method. When the player pulls the lever, then this toggle function or toggle method will run. So in here, we need to close the doors. Now, if I wanted to close the doors, because they're starting open, I would do self : close, like that. And that would then call this method down here. But if I then run this function again, and the doors are closed already, then it will run the close function again. And that's not what I want to do. That's what's currently happening. So in order to stop that from happening, we can use an if-then statement or a conditional statement. So here, above the self-close method call, I can actually put in if, and then I can check what the value of self.open currently is. So if self.open is true, then self-close, and then end it with an end statement there. So wherever we have an if, we need a then and an end. So we do if, then we're looking at some condition to see whether it's true or false. Then we're using the then statement to say that's the end of the condition. Let's get into what's going to happen. Now, only if this is true, this condition is true, will it then run this code here. if self.open is not equal to true, so if self.open was false, for example, then this code here wouldn't run. And this allows us to have divergent game logic. So it kind of looks a little bit like this. So if I go into my trusty Blackboard here, normally game logic would be proceeding in a step-by-step process, one process after the other like this. And this might be how you've already experienced your scripting. With a conditional statement, we start to look a little bit more like this. We have processes still, and then we hit a conditional, which is usually denoted like that, like in a diamond. And the conditional is a question, and it's saying, is something true or false? If it's false, go this direction and do some game logic over here. That was supposed to be an N. That's for no. No. If this is false, go this way. But let's call it false. If this turns out to be a true statement, go in this direction. And so this way, for example, this way might be, I don't know, the question might be, has the player got a key? If it's false, then don't open the door. If it's true, then do open the door. Has the player run out of health? If they haven't run out of health, then allow them to carry on playing. If they have run out of health, then stop them playing and kill them, and maybe respawn them and all of the rest of that logic. So after we've done this conditional statement, then you might find that your game logic proceeds as normal, or it could even branch back in. It could meet back up with this one and carry on as normal here. So let's look at that in Crayta. Let's look at it in some actual Lua coding. So here we have this statement here. We're checking whether this is true. And at the moment, this is true. So this should work. Let's run this. I go over to the lever, pull the lever, and at the moment, the doors were open. Open was true. And the conditional statement said, if the doors are open, close the doors. And so it ran the close function. Now, you may find that you may see that they still perform that function. And that's because we never set this value to false. So when the doors have closed, i.e. when it runs this function here, let's then set that variable, that open variable, let's set that to equal false. So now self.open is false. So the next time we toggle the doors, this code will say if self.open is true, then but self.open won't be true. So it won't run this bit. Let's see whether that's worked. Going back into the game, run over here, press this. So I pressed it once, and now the doors are closed. So that variable self.open has been set to false, and trying to close the doors no longer works. So you can see we've used this conditional, this if statement here, to stop this bit of code running if the doors are already closed. You might be thinking to yourself, why has Andy used two equal signs? And that is because, that is a very good question. And that is because this double equals here is basically checking whether the left-hand side here is equal to the right-hand side here. So you notice one equal sign will put this value, whatever that is, into the variable on the left-hand side. So this could be a number, or it could be true or false, and whatever it is will get put into that variable there. Whereas double equals will check, is that the same as that? If it is, then do this. And we can actually capture the alternative logic to that as well. So if that was not true, we can capture that with an else. So here we're saying, if this is true, do this bit. If it's not true, if this wasn't true, so else, do this bit here. So here we would put self open. And we also need to make sure that we set self.open to true when the doors have been opened. So now this works in a, using this conditional, this is like a switch now. So let's go and have a look. So that is now set to, the self.open variable has been set to false. The doors have been closed and it ran the closing animation. And then if I press it again, it now runs the opening animation because it's checking, the doors are closed, self.open is false. So the if won't work, we need to go to the else part of it. And the else says self-open, self-close, self-open, self-close, self-open. So that's the fundamentals behind conditional statements and this idea of a diverging path in your game logic. Now, we're not limited to just one statement in here. If we wanted to, we could say, and player has the key, for example, or some other variable. We can do this and here to test not one condition, but two conditions. We can say if both of these are true, using that and keyword. We could also use an or keyword here like this, which means if that is true or that is true, then do this. Not only that, but we can nest if statements as well. We can do if player has key within here. And so on. So you can nest if statements, you can combine if statements into multiple if statements. But the key factor of the conditional statement is that you can use it to diverge your game logic and to do slightly different things depending on the current state of the game or an object in the game or the player. So hopefully this has been a useful tutorial for how to use a conditional statement. And let me know any feedback you might have. If you get stuck or have any more questions about conditional statements, then head over to the Discord for Crayta, where there's plenty of people there willing to jump in and help out and help you fix your bugs in your code or look into conditional statements with you, or even join you in your own game, working towards the same goal together of getting as many conditional statements in your game as you can get. I don't know, whatever you want to do. That's the great thing about Crayta. So I look forward to seeing you in the game.